Imagine living in a nation tearing itself apart, brother against brother, cities burning, hope fading, and one quiet, awkward man standing at the center of the storm, holding the future of an entire country on his shoulders. Abraham Lincoln was not born into power, wealth, or privilege. He was born into a log cabin, surrounded by hardship, loss, and failure. Yet this same man would rise to become the most influential leader in American history, guiding the United States through its darkest hour and redefining freedom itself. This is not just the story of a president. This is the story of a man who carried the weight of a nation's soul, who doubted himself, who suffered deeply, and who still chose to do what he believed was right when it nearly destroyed him. Abraham Lincoln's story begins far from the grand halls of Washington. It begins in poverty, in isolation, and in relentless struggle. From losing his mother at a young age to failing repeatedly in business and politics, Lincoln's early life was marked by disappointment. But where others would have given up, Lincoln developed something far more powerful than strength: resilience. He educated himself by candlelight, sharpened his mind through books, and shaped his character through hardship. Long before he became president, Lincoln was already preparing for a moment he did not yet know would define him. A moment when the very idea of the United States would be tested. As tensions over slavery threatened to rip the nation apart, Lincoln would be thrust into leadership at the worst possible time. Hated by enemies, doubted by allies, and burdened by impossible choices, he would face a single question that would echo through history. Could one man save a nation, make it more just than it had ever been before? Abraham Lincoln was not born into power, privilege, or comfort. He was born into struggle. In a one-room log cabin in Kentucky, with dirt floors and no wealth to inherit, Lincoln's earliest memories were shaped by hardship. His family moved constantly, chasing survival on the American frontier. His mother died when he was just 9 years old, a loss that left a permanent mark on his soul. From that moment, Lincoln learned that life was fragile, unfair, and often cruel, but also that endurance mattered. He had almost no formal education, yet he possessed something far more powerful: an unbreakable hunger to learn. By candlelight, Lincoln taught himself to read and write, borrowing books whenever he could, reading the Bible, Shakespeare, and law texts. Knowledge became his escape, his weapon, and eventually, his destiny. As a young man, Lincoln worked as a farmhand, a rail splitter, a shopkeeper, and a postmaster. He failed in business more than once, sinking into debt and depression. Yet he never allowed failure to define him. People around him noticed his honesty, his humor, and his rare ability to listen. He earned the nickname Honest Abe, not through image building, but through consistency. When Lincoln entered politics, it was not for fame or ambition, but because he believed deeply in the idea that America should stand for fairness and opportunity. At a time when slavery divided the nation, Lincoln's views were shaped slowly, thoughtfully, and painfully. He hated slavery not only because it was cruel, but because it contradicted the very promise of America. Lincoln's rise was anything but smooth. He lost multiple elections, suffered public humiliation, and faced crushing self-doubt. There were moments when quitting would have been the logical choice. But Lincoln believed that setbacks were not signs to stop, but lessons to learn. When he finally won the presidency in 1860, the victory came at the nation's most dangerous moment. Almost immediately, Southern states began to secede from the Union. The United States, still young and fragile, stood on the edge of collapse. Lincoln inherited not peace, but chaos. Not unity, but division. Not applause, but hatred from all sides. The Civil War exploded like a wound torn open. Brothers fought brothers. Families were ripped apart. Blood soaked the soil of America. Lincoln faced criticism unlike any president before or after him. Some called him too weak. Others called him a tyrant. Many doubted his intelligence, mocked his appearance, and underestimated his resolve. But Lincoln understood something vital. Leadership is not about pleasing everyone, it is about doing what is right when the cost is unbearable. Night after night, Lincoln visited wounded soldiers, reading letters, comforting families, carrying the weight of every life lost. The war haunted him, but it did not break him. One of Lincoln's greatest challenges was deciding when and how to end slavery. He knew freeing enslaved people would reshape the nation forever and provoke immense backlash. But he also knew that allowing slavery to continue would destroy America's moral foundation. In 1863, with the war raging and the future uncertain, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. It was not perfect, and it did not immediately free all enslaved people, but it changed the meaning of the war. The fight was no longer only about preserving the Unionites. It became a battle for human freedom. Lincoln transformed the war into a moral crusade, aligning America's survival with its conscience. Despite this monumental act, Lincoln remained humble. He never portrayed himself as a savior. He believed history would judge him, and he feared that judgment. His speeches reflected this humility. The Gettysburg Address, one of the most powerful speeches ever delivered, lasted just 2 minutes. Yet in those few words, Lincoln redefined democracy. He said, declaring that a nation of the people, by the power of the for the people must not perish from the earth. There was no arrogance, no victory, boast only, sorrow, resolve, and hope. As the war neared its end, victory finally seemed possible. But Lincoln's vision went beyond winning. He spoke not of punishment, but reconciliation, with malice toward none, with charity for all. He urged the nation to heal. He wanted a reunited America, not a vengeful one. This mercy angered extremists on both sides. To some, Lincoln had gone too far. To others, not far enough. The pressure was immense, but Lincoln stood firm, believing that peace built on forgiveness was stronger than peace built on fear. Then, at the moment of triumph, tragedy struck. Just days after the Civil War effectively ended, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. The nation was plunged into grief. The man who had carried America through its darkest hour was gone. His death felt like a cruel twist of fate, a reminder that progress often demands sacrifice. Millions mourned. Former enslaved people wept openly, knowing the man who had fought for their freedom had paid with his life. The world watched as America buried not just a president, but a symbol of endurance, compassion, and moral courage. Lincoln's legacy did not end with his death, it began there. Over time, his words grew more powerful, his example more profound. He became the standard against which leaders are measured. Not because he was perfect, but because he was principled. He showed that greatness is not born, it is built through struggle, empathy, and unwavering commitment to justice. Lincoln proved that a man from nothing could change everything. That leadership means carrying the pain of others, that unity is worth fighting for, and that the true strength of a nation lies not in its weapons, but in its values. Today, Abraham Lincoln stands as more than a historical figure. He is a reminder that even in times of division, courage can prevail. That even when the world feels broken, one voice steady, honest, and brave can hold it together. His life tells us that legends are not forged in comfort, but in crisis. And that sometimes, the greatest heroes are those who never stop believing in humanity, even when humanity fails itself. Abraham Lincoln did not live long enough to see the full results of his sacrifices. He did not see a united America healed from its wounds. He did not see former slaves fully free in dignity and equality. What he saw instead was resistance, hatred, and ultimately, a bullet meant to silence his vision. But history teaches us something remarkable. Lincoln may have died, but his ideas became immortal. Today, more than a century later, his words still echo in classrooms, courts, and hearts across the world. A poor boy who taught himself by candlelight became a global symbol of freedom, democracy, and moral courage. He proved that leadership is not about power or perfection, but about standing firm when doing the right thing feels impossible. Lincoln's story reminds us that true legends are not born from victory alone, but from perseverance through pain. He lost elections, lost loved ones, lost peace, yet he never lost his belief that humanity could be better. In a world still divided by hatred, injustice, and fear, his life asks us a question that matters more than ever. When history looks back at us, will it see courage or silence? Abraham Lincoln was not flawless, but he chose progress over comfort and unity over revenge. And that choice changed the course of history forever. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think differently about leadership and sacrifice, then this channel is for you. Subscribe, because the world is filled with legends whose stories deserve to be remembered. And the next one may change how you see history itself.